is it ever a good idea to search for your symptoms online? Now, apparently 63% of Brits do it regularly, but is it helpful or harmful? And how do we doctors really feel when our patients turn up with screenshots of medical sites having already diagnosed themselves? Now, Zoe, I know you've got some mixed feelings about this, haven't you? Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good.
I think, look, the reality is that majority of people will have Googled their symptoms. So I think the key things are there are good sources of information and there are less good sources of information. So, you know, going to the NHS website, for example, is very different to going to, I don't know, a chef on TikTok. Or, you know, we know that a lot of people use social media as a resource for information. So I would say the NHS website, as doctors, we use Google in the consultation. You know, we might be looking at what your rash looks like and using resources, but we have a trained eye, we have a lot of knowledge as to where to go. So first of all, yeah, use a good resource and tell your doctor. Don't come in, you know, having gone down a rabbit hole, you've got headaches, you've convinced yourself it's brain cancer, for example, and not tell us, because if you don't tell us what you found, you don't give us the opportunity to allay those concerns that you've developed.
That's right. And now, Nigat, you've got a slightly different view because you like social media, don't you, for symptoms?
Google away. And actually, I was just going to say TikTok away if you want to as well. I'm on TikTok. I make social media content. And I think it's always like I back completely what Zoe's saying. It's really important to look at the sources, look at a verified doctors. It's very easy. You can go online. If there's a doctor that you see or a healthcare professional, you can Google them and their GMC number comes up for free. So you can actually work that out really well. And I think now we've got to embrace the fact that not only Dr. Google, we have Dr. ChatGPT as well. People do that because real life stuff that's happening on social media makes it through my doors. I've got to, as a clinician, not just understand what's happening in my clinical surgery, I've got to know what people are consuming online. And people are going to be Googling things. I've personally done it. I am that mum at 3 o'clock in the morning that's Googling every single symptom away because there have been times that actually I've not known that particular thing. So it's empowering, but important to then share that with your doctor and say, I've looked this up. Can I just verify that with you?
Some new research that's come out as well saying that a third of teenage girls will go to TikTok or Instagram for health advice rather than go to a doctor. So, you know,
and I would say not even teenage girls. I would say the majority of women who are looking at things like perimenopause, endometriosis, fibroids, chronic diseases, they are going to be looking at this because clearly there is a mismatch in the communication or the information that's out there from what they're getting from their doctors.
So, Hilary, finding reliable sources is important.
It's so important. Look, I mean, I agree with both of you in some ways. I think information is really important. It's empowering, but some information, a little bit of information can sometimes be a dangerous thing. So TikTok, in sometimes, but it's then about the interpretation of that information. So go to your doctor with your concerns and say, this is what I found on Google. My headaches could be any of these 101 things. It's unlikely to be a brain tumour. It's unlikely to be meningitis. Much more likely to be a migraine or a tension headache. So go and take the information that you have with your concerns to your doctor, who's the professional who can interpret those signs.
I mean, absolutely. We're actually taught at medical school. I remember a very charismatic teacher who taught us ICE, ICE, baby. And ICE stands for ideas, concerns and expectations. So a good doctor will be trying to elicit, what are your ideas? What do you think is going on? What are your concerns? So in this scenario we've given is that it's a brain tumour. And what are your expectations? You know, if you actually are seeking a referral or a test, let us know. It doesn't necessarily mean we will send you off for that scan that you want, but at least we'll be able to explain to you the reasons why that's not in your best interest.
It's so important to get that across. But reliable information is important, Hilary, but sometimes they can see people like us online, but it's not real, is it?
This is such an important subject. So we've all been subject to deepfakes in social media, and it's almost every day now. The problem is the deepfakes will persuade people within 10 seconds that it's our voice, that it's our lips that are moving, and it's completely unreal. So we try and do everything we can to stop this. None of us ever advertise weight loss products, erectile dysfunction tablets. We would never do that. But there are hundreds up there being posted. They're not checked by the platforms for authenticity. And even if we say this is dangerous, people aren't getting the products in the post, they're paying, or they could be potentially dangerous, the platforms currently are not taking them down, and that really worries us.
Yeah, it is really concerning. I've had DMs from people who have bought things thinking it was me who was selling them, and they could have anything in them. It could be really dangerous. So it's really important to go to verified sources or NHS and official websites for your advice. But tell us you've done so.
Yes, please.
That's so. Now, hands up if you have ever had to nag someone to go and check out a health issue. Yeah, you are not alone. But is it interfering or is it your duty to a loved one? Now, one study says it just annoys the person, but another says it's a good thing and can save a life. We've all seen firsthand how important that can be. Now, Nigat, you've got a really powerful story of this, haven't you?
This happened actually a couple of months ago, but I only saw the resolution recently. So I had a patient who came to see me and she said, I'm probably wasting your time, but my husband noticed that when I lifted my arm, he was lying in bed next to me, when I lifted my arm, there was an indentation. It's not on my breast, it was actually on her armpit, the side of her arm. So just where I'm pointing there, that's where the indentation was noticed. She'd left it alone. A couple of days later, she was brushing her hair and her partner was walking past and he noticed it again in the mirror and said, just get that looked at, I don't know what it is. And she was just like, but it's not on my breast, because she examines her breasts regularly. So checking everything, and she goes, I'm probably wasting your time. I examined her, nothing to find, absolutely nothing. Checked her lymph nodes, checked in her neck, checked the boob. And I said, do you know what, there's absolutely nothing. I'm pretty confident there is nothing there to find. But what is it that worries you? So that concerns bit came out in the consultation. She goes, I'm not worried, but my husband is just like, in his stomach, he feels that it could be cancer, some form of cancer. I'm pretty convinced that it's not, because you haven't found anything, I can't find anything. And I said, just because you've said that, and I know he's not in the room, it's no skin off my nose, I'm going to do a 2-week referral, which is a really quick referral to get things checked out if we're worried about something. Turned out she had stage 3 lobular breast cancer.
Wow.
And I had no idea. She found me after she'd gone all through the management and treatment and things like that. She came into the surgery and just opened her arms wide open and gave me a huge hug with her partner. And she said, you saved my life. And I said, actually, no, your partner saved your life. I was just the doctor that day that listened and just went with that gut feeling.
And that gut feeling is so important.
It saves us so many times, that gut feeling.
As doctors, we don't get it in medical school. We don't get training on the gut feeling, but we know, we learn as we practice.
We do. That intuition must always be listened to, whether it's you as the doctor, and sometimes, you know, especially true with children, sometimes you can look at a healthy child and they're playing and you check them out, but your gut feeling says, oh, there's something not right, and you can't put your finger on it. We must always be in tune with that. And the same is absolutely true for parents. You know, we are very much trained that if a parent feels that their child is not right, parents know their children better than anyone, and they can't even say why, we must take that seriously. In fact, when we're assessing a child that's unwell, we have certain parameters and we have a scoring system. So we'll look at their breathing and their temperature and their heart rate, but we also give points if actually the parent, for parental concern. So that intuition that we have, we don't really understand it. You know, it's not recognised in science. We can't, you know, put it in a textbook, but it's a very important part of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, we hear about men particularly who have to be dragged kicking and screaming by their partner to the doctors. You know, you're familiar with that. And I would say one tip is to say this: Dad or husband, partner, if you're not going to do it for you, would you do it for me? Would you do it for the kids? Just go and reassure us that you're OK, and sometimes that'll just persuade them to go and get it checked.
Yeah, I would say if anyone's at home watching this now, if you've got a letter sitting on a cupboard somewhere for breast screening, a bowel screening kits, your cervical screening, anything like that, now is the time to ring the number and book the test. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your loved ones.
Absolutely.